Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how you can import data from another Excel workbook into your current one using Power Query. So for starters, I'm going to go to the Data tab and select on Get Data from File and then select from Excel Workbook. And now I'm just going to navigate to the file that I want to import. Click on Import. And then Power Query is going to look for any tables that it can find. And in this case, I've got a table that's formatted and easy to import. If I wanted to make any adjustments to this before I actually download it into my file, I can click on the Transform Data option. And once the Power Query editor is loaded, I can make any sort of adjustments that I want. And so you can see by default, it's made already multiple steps here, or taken multiple steps while it's importing, and I can make additional ones with Power Query. So, suppose you only wanted the total sales and you don't need the quantity or the price. I could select those two columns, right click, and then remove columns. And now that's gone. So even if there was a formula in here, it doesn't matter, because Power Query, every time it's running through this process of importing this data, it's going to go through each one of these steps here. And so you can see I've added this step of removing those columns. So every time it's going to download that data and then make all these changes. So regardless of what you do here in the Power Query editor, you don't have to worry about having to do this each time, because Power Query is going to remember these steps so that when you refresh the data, it's going to do the same thing over and over again. It's not only going to import it in, it's going to apply any changes that you make here in the Power Query editor. So suppose you're okay with this. Now you can hit the close and load button. And now it's going to download into here, and now it's in your spreadsheet. So now you can do calculations on this, you can run pivot tables, whatever you want. This is basically your own standalone version of the data. So it's not a live file. So I mean, if you were to try to make any changes, if you deleted anything off here, it's not going to impact the original. So it basically gives you a snapshot of what that original looks like, and after applying any sort of transformations that you've made. So it gives you a snapshot. And so if there's changes to this original, what you'd want to do is right click, refresh, and you can see it circles around for a little bit there, and that's that process of downloading the data and then making those steps again, and those reapplying the changes that you made before importing it in here. So it's going to repeat that process for you each and every time that you download it. Now, obviously, the downside of that is if you've got a long and complicated process, let's say if you've got a huge file and you're applying a lot of different steps, that can take a little time to do that. But in this case, you can see just refreshing that file, we're talking about seconds here. So anytime there's a change, you can do that and just do a refresh here, and it'll reprocess your steps and import in here. And then again, if you wanted to do any calculations or create a pivot table, you can easily do that based on this template, or based on this this download. So we can have our total sales, we've got our pivot table, and so if anything updates on that, we just have to go to refresh. And you can also refresh from the Data tab. There's a refresh all button here. So either there, or you can go to the actual download here and right click refresh. The advantage of going to data refresh all, it's going to refresh everything, your pivot table and all the queries that you have, whereas this one is just going to refresh this particular query right here. So the data refresh all button is going to be more powerful and more useful for you when you're updating your queries. But that's a quick overview of importing data from another Excel workbook, and as you can see, it's a really simple process. All you have to do is go to the Data tab, hit Get Data from File, from Excel workbook, and then from there you select your workbook, and then make any sort of adjustments or transformations that you want before loading it into your current workbook.